Well, it's interesting that Nathan mentions this about it's not impossible, but we all know the constraints of rehearsal processes, and I think that one of the things I've been thinking about the last 2 weeks is that um, yes, we're only focusing on two scenes, right? And we're spending a number of hours on just what, an eighth or so of the play. But I do think that what's valuable, and I mean, I'd love to talk even more about this maybe next week as we wrap up, but I'd love for you all to be thinking about some of the takeaways that are not just applicable to this play or Stoppard, but what are some things that we can take from this potentially to work on other scripts, whether classical or contemporary, because I think this play straddles both multiple styles. And one thing that struck me is that there's such value in slowing down. And I don't know about you all, but I know that, I'm a huge fan of table work, regardless of what the play is. Yay. Yes, Jen. And I really think it I see a change happen when all it takes are a few actors that slow themselves down, that tap the brakes for themselves. And I think it sends a message to the cast, the rest of the cast, that that's okay. Because the director can say it all they want, take your time. But it's another thing entirely when people actually take you up on that, just from the director's point of view. And when they do, then everyone goes, oh, okay. And then things can start to float to the surface. And I think it let things become less daunting and dense. But I think so much of what when watching you all is, and I'm just thinking for you, Téa, in particular, is you becoming so new to this, giving yourself permission to not run headlong or to achieve a result or to understand it all fully, but just to actually let yourselves breathe in it and register what's happening. Because I think that's another trap of Stoppard. Just like with Shakespeare, it's like, oh, I know what I'm saying, so I'm just going to run to the end zone. And then we're left behind, and your fellow actors are kind of left behind playing catch up, and we're not actually breathing in the thoughts with you. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on those thoughts, but I just wanted to start with that. And I think Nathan teed that up nicely anyway. But it's just something I was thinking about, that it seems kind of basic, but actually is so important and kind of overlooked, is the pace in which we unpack a play. Any thoughts on that? And
Yeah. Yeah, I've worked with a number of directors, I think, that get nervous when they're would like to have structure as soon as possible. They want to get a sense of what the structure of the scenes are going to be and jump to blocking. And I remember when I did Measure for Measure at the Goodman, Bob Falls was directing. We did 2 weeks of table work, and it got to the point where people were sort of muttering, "Are we ever going to stage this thing?" But the fact is that because we did so much detailed table work, all of the staging kind of just fell into place. Because people knew why they were saying what they were saying and who they were saying it to, and instinctively knew, and Bob knew as well, that where somebody needed to be to say what they needed to say. And it really was on the other hand, I did have an experience once with Shakespeare and Company where we were doing a 12th night and we dropped the play in, and we took 3 weeks, and we were going to take it to Toronto, and suddenly we realized we only had about 5 days to stage it.
oh, geez.
And so we were staging scenes three at a time.
Gosh.
So you can get to an excess, of course,
Sure.
but yeah, I find that when you take the time early on with the text, a lot of the other stuff falls into place.
Yeah.
I
Well said, Jimmy. And thoughts? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Tay.
I when I did 100 Words for Snow with Brendon in Connecticut, that was like my first show out of school, so I was very, and it was just me on the stage, so it was just like thousands of words, hundreds
For an
of
hour
words
and 40 minutes, we
for
should
an
say.
hour and 40
Yes.
minutes, probably longer. Just like just me and the words. So I we took the time like at the table to digest it, and to I was like terrified out of my mind because it was so much to handle, and I didn't know if I could do it, but Brendon is amazing, as we all know, and we broke it down. And I think that Thomasina is kind of in the same temperament that Rory was, like my character in the other show was, just like always like curious and wanting to know more, and just like finding where that more is, but also finding where I can slow down, and where the words are kind of helping me, and kind of uh, when things don't make sense, how can I use the words to help me get there, and things like that. So I think definitely with this text that I'm getting more familiar with, just kind of the pace and how things are going with each character in the arc of the story. I think it's a great thing to throw in there, just like slowing things down, even if like you as an actor know what's going on, your audience still needs to catch up with you, so making sure that you're all on the same page, that everyone is enjoying it at the same time. So yeah, I think that's fantastic.
It makes it a little less daunting, I would think, Téa, just going off of what you were saying, that sense of these ice flow of words, whether it's Shakespeare or a one or two person show or a Stoppard. When you look at that like, you know, that ice flow, so to speak, that like, how do you chip away at that? And I think it is like a beat at a time, one thought at a time. And that's how we process watching a play too. It's like, we don't just, take in a speech in one gulp. So I think it's like you said, it's reflective of the audience keeping up too, but also the sense of like looking on the page going, oh my gosh, I got this aria for 2 pages. Um, wow, this feels intimidating, but I think giving yourself permission to kind of back through it a thought at a time and breathe through it. I've noticed that with actors when they go, oh, that wasn't so bad. You know, that was now that I let myself take my time through it, you know.
Uh,
Yeah,
um,
and oh, go ahead, Chris.
oh, okay. Well, I was thinking that not necessarily about going slow, but when we're given the time to sit and do table work as a group, I think actors can be somewhat selfish with a text, right? We're looking at our lines, what we need to say. If you have a little bit of time, maybe page through and see what other people are saying about us. But we're focused on our character and what we are doing. And when we have the chance to sit in a group and you can get different perspectives from the other characters, stuff that we're not necessarily going to get if we're just blocking and staging. We're all investigating the text, and there can be some dialogue, and you can be shown stuff that you never would have seen on your own because you're getting the perspective from someone else across the table from you who isn't playing the part. I love I love this, just getting into the text and the words and digging them and talking about the characters. And in this setting where like we aren't necessarily invested, this character's mine, this is my role, that we can talk about each other's motivations, what we're doing, and oh well, did you see this line? Like, what does that mean? This is so much fun. And I miss rehearsal processes that leave that part out because whatever reason the budget is small, so let's cut a week off and we'll just get it on stage first. We're missing out if we're not digging into the words.
Yeah, I agree. That's largely what I was going to say. I'm a nerd, so I'm always going to be team table work. Yay. It's like, let's dig in and find more. But it's really exciting when you get to listen to other scenes, because you can figure out like things about your character based on what other people are saying, things like that. But you can also like tee up things. Like if you know someone else, if you're listening to someone else's scene and you're like, oh, I can actually help that scene that I'm not in if I really like pop this plot point here in this scene, like that'll tee that up for later on. And, when you're mostly concentrating on your scenes, you may not think of that unless you're sitting around a room going, oh, that's got a thread that links to here and that sort of thing. So it's fun.
As a quick example of that, Jen, I love that you mentioned that because I'm right now, early stages of staging The Winter's Tale with high school conservatory in Worcester, and they got we just went through table work recently, and one of the things that people were noticing and throwing out was, oh my gosh, people are talking about time a lot. People are talking about faith a lot, and it's exactly what you said, Jen. I think you hit on the head of like, since we're all doing this together, I can help for the audience to go, wow, I'm hearing this. I'm keep hearing this time. I keep hearing these ideas, and same thing in Stoppard loves doing that too. So I think it's another way to not only help each other, but help the audience with those big ideas. And if everyone is aware, like, wow, we're all chiming in and taking our own stab at this big idea, then it's, to me, that's a lot. Frankly, it takes the onus off the director to be like, hey, by the way, you aren't aware of this, but in 3 other scenes, they talk about time. So it actually saves time at the beginning to front load everyone starting to clock that with each other and going, oh my gosh, well, Jen, I can help with that. And let's all make that a thing and be mindful of that. And I think that's so true. And Chris, just really quick, I feel like, to me, what you just said is fascinating because we have a couple of Septimuses here, but I think which is exciting, and also I feel like there's something about the idea of, yes, we're focused on our role, our lines and such, but at the same time, we're ultimately Team Arcadia. And how can we collectively, whether we're the only person playing the role, or if we're going to divide it up and we're going to go, in a more deconstructed way, either way, it's a sense of, I'm a piece of this. And it's a way to kind of also create ensemble. I think that having the table work allows us not just intellectually to connect, but start to feel like, oh, here's a way we can all help tell this story together, and not feel like, well, I'm playing Septimus, so I don't really need to hear other people's thoughts, because then, well, what's the harm, right? That's what I feel like. It's like everyone can just throw it into their knapsack, and maybe it's worthwhile, maybe it's not, but that's another reason why I think it's good to do table work with the entire group rather than just those people in the scene, because like you say, Chris, someone on the outside might go, it's funny, I just noticed this about this character. And it's hard, right? When you have the tunnel vision of, you can only see so much, right? Everyone can only have a certain amount of what they've gleaned about a character. So why not hide-mind it? Yes, ultimately a certain person will be doing those lines up on stage and that blocking, but in the early stages, why not all hands on deck? Because these characters, like Shakespeare, are so rich and contradictory and are full of universes. So it's the more we learn about them from each other, I think the better. Like, I'm discovering things about these characters I hadn't clocked, and I thought I knew this play. So I think it's all to the good, if we allow ourselves to check our ego a little bit, to just feel like anyone can chime in about this and it doesn't feel territorial. Jeff, anything to add?
I'll just say a couple of things. I don't have much to add because my thoughts have been pretty much articulated already. But what you were just saying, Brendon, reminded me, there is a directorial style of which I'm not particularly fond, where a director likes to only give information to one actor at a time. I don't know, in the belief that characters don't know each other's motivations or what's going on in real life in a scene. And it's a technique, but I've never liked it for much the same reason that you were saying. It's sort of the opposite of a collaborative way of working, which Chris and you, Brendon, will be familiar with what Téa used to do. We can't do it anymore for various reasons. And Téa originally, this is the theater company that we are members of. I'm still here, so I still work with it occasionally. And their whole deal was to do sort of long-term study, lots of readings, lots of table work, many Mondays of getting together before doing the play. It's much more of a conventional rehearsal style now, but we also used to double cast or partner cast or whatever you want to call it. There are different names where two people would be playing the same part, not as primary and understudy, but as two co-equals. It made for longer and often for the director more trying rehearsal periods, but it was great seeing someone else do your character, and because you had to be around and watch them do it. You learned a lot that way. It was a great technique. But again, these are all sort of luxuries and indulgences that are hard to come by, when you're limited by time and budgets and all that sort of thing.
It was amazing,
This is
Jeff.
so
When I did the Noel Coward piece with Téa, and it was double cast, and I think it's a one act, and it already has 10 to 11 characters in it already. And then when we double cast it, it was extraordinary. And I was not prepared for how intense it was, but also amazing, because you'd have literally one cast would sit in the front row, and then with a tag team, we just do a chunk at a time. But I love the fact that I was so afraid people would feel like, what the hell are you doing with that character? That's not, but actually I would watch how the actors would think, well, what is the essential DNA of this character that we both agree on, and then we'll manifest it in our own way. That, if I suggested, well, you could cross to your wife over there, how does that feel? Sure. And I remember, no, I think it was the wife crossing the husband. And one pair, the one playing the wife was like, I think I would sit on your lap. What do you think, honey? And then, and the actor would be like, yeah, that makes sense. And the other couple tried it, and they're like, no, I perch on the chair, the armchair. And one was not good or bad, but it was like, yeah, they both are totally valid. And it shows, it's like quantum mechanics, right? It's a little like this play of saying the multiverse is right there, that you can literally see, like, yeah, both are totally valid, and it works for those particular people, right? So if we were doing our production of ARCADIA, that this is Lady Croom, this is Thomasina, this is Jellaby, like, that's it, and somebody else is going to bring something else to it. So it really was a fascinating thing, Jeff, to see that no one owns the character. There's so much there that you can come at in a different way.
That's my argument, that every production of any play is definitive. Because it's definitive because these are the people doing this play, and nobody else could do that play like these people do it.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful, Jimmy. Kate, did you have a thought?
I was thinking about the perspective of the dramaturg in all this, and a little bit like what the actor would experience. I think one of the interesting things about being a dramaturg is you are in the room with a lot of different kinds of directors who have a lot of different kinds of processes. And, everything from the Brendons of the world, where you do 10 days of table work and then stage Love Slavers Lost in 3 days for a 2.5-week rehearsal period, to people who do no table work, literally just start with scene 1 and figure out each scene as it goes along, to folks who have the method of table working each scene, but only with the people in it. And Jen, you're self-identifying as a nerd. I think we get along for some of those reasons, right? Book people. This is my actual office at work. This is what happens to you when you get a PhD in English, all the books. The more processes I've been a part of, the more rooms I've been in, the more I just double down on the importance of table work, and of I would argue in some ways that this is a luxury, right? We get to spend 4 weeks on 2 scenes and talk about anything we want to talk about, and we don't have time pressing on us. But in other ways, I would argue that it's not a luxury, because the more times I've experienced it, that deep understanding of the text, especially with Shakespeare, but really anything that's heightened and any text, the more the actors understand exactly what they're saying, the more the group understands what we're trying to make together, the faster the staging goes, and the more magical it is. Then you get this cohesion that I think just doesn't happen without this investment. So we could say that table work is a luxury. We could also say that it's a necessity. And, not when you want to cut things, this isn't the thing to cut. Like, we need this time to do this job well, to do the play, you know, to do its service, to do each other's service. So yeah, it's interesting as everybody was describing this process or that one, a sort of dramaturg's perspective of watching a lot of people do a lot of different things, and I just double down on the value of every little word and doing it together.
And I feel one of the things I hear you talk about, Kate, is that's so well put, that the idea of specificity, right? It's like to me, and that transcends any, you know, any play. To me, rises and falls on how much are we turning the screw moment to moment? How much are we really understanding what we're saying? And the more we understand it, it's, you know, by the time we open, you don't, not necessarily on day 1 or 2 or 8, but it's by the time we are presenting this for an audience, it's not just, we first have to know what you're saying, then you can make some choices about it, right? And then you can, but the specificity is really, I think, a requirement. You know, I agree with you, Kate, that this is a chance for us to put under the electron microscope 2 scenes that but I think people could look at this and go, okay, we could extrapolate off this to the whole play. And some of this would be work people could be doing outside of rehearsal, some of it in, but also just the value of saying you don't know what's going on in this moment. I'm not sure what, you know, we've had moments of that too, which I love and hope we'll continue to, of like drawing, you know, really fessing up to, I think, I'm not sure what Septimus is exactly referring to here. Great, because I think exciting things happen when we don't front. And because I think Stoppard and Shakespeare, for example, will call us out on that. You know, I learned that as a director too, where like I will be found out sooner than later if I go, oh yeah, well, I think it's kind of like this, and then like a day later, people come back, including the dramaturg, being like, you know, I don't think that makes sense. Like, yeah, I didn't really know what I was talking about. I
Yeah,
just didn't want to look stupid with Stoppard, you
I
know.
think one analogy could be, how would you choose to build a house? From the foundation up or from the roof down?
Wow. Yeah, right. Exactly.